What's up, everyone? Another episode of Ben on Sports is coming at you today. And today, as you can see, it is not the weekly NASCAR episode. It is actually a baseball season preview and prediction episode. I think this is going to be a little bit longer than I originally intended it being. Um, Looking at the time and looking how much information is here, tried to get through it quick. Um, but I hope you guys enjoy. Hopefully, it's some good information. And a lot of these I break down, MVP contenders, or I'll do like I'll get into the playoffs. I might show you what I think is going to happen in the playoffs, but I'm not going to do an in-depth dive like I have been for other sports, and I'm probably not going to do awards contenders just yet. I'm still looking into a couple things, and that may end up being a short form. It might end up being short form content anyway. Um, I digress. I will be looking into every single team today. I'm going to start with the AL East and go right through, talk about every team, talk about some standings, and it's going to be a fun time. So without further ado, let's hop right into the AL East champion from last year, the New York Yankees. And if you guys don't pick up on it, all of these teams will be in the order, or the divisions will be in order of where they finished last year, really just because it's a good starting point, and I don't want anybody to accuse me of favoritism for having a random team go first. So that's why. So you can see here the division champs Yankees, 94-68, pretty good season last year. Some pretty big additions in the names of Max Fried and Devin Williams. That's going to strengthen up your pitching staff. Cody Bellinger. Sometimes I call him carb free because I feel like he's a player who will put up good stats, but like it doesn't always amount to much. Sometimes I think he puts up stats whether the team's good or bad, and that's usually a good thing. And I don't want to get down a Cody Bellinger hole right now, but Cody Bellinger and Paul Goldschmidt, hopefully Paul Goldschmidt can be just 80% of what he was at his peak, and the Yankees could be that much better this season. Cody Bellinger and Paul Goldschmidt are going to help replace the gap from this big key subtraction in Juan Soto. Everybody knows what went down this offseason, moving from the Bronx to Queens, signing the big deal with the Mets, leaving the Yankees after 1 year. Clay Holmes, the Yankees' old closer, is now a starter for the Mets. The Mets kind of taking the Yankees players, aren't they? Gleyber Torres, longtime Yankee, leaving to go to the Tigers, and Nestor Cortez was part of the trade with the Brewers to get Devin Williams. There's there's always for all these teams going to be maybe some smaller name guys or some minor league guys or even some fringe roster candidates, but I'm only going to put the guys that I think are like actually important to the team's success or to the team's success last year. Here's the projected lineup. These projected lineups are what I see their opening day lineup being. So if you see a weird lineup, and you're like, oh, this guy, why isn't he playing? I like him. Well, he could be hurt, or it could be a lefty-righty situation where he's a left-handed batter that doesn't play that much against lefties. That does happen for a couple of teams on opening day, so keep that in mind when you're watching. But for the Yankees, I don't think it'll change too much. Projected opening day lineup, Austin Wells leading off, did get confirmation from Boone on that. That ought to be an interesting experience. A franchise is great. As great as the Yankees, with the history of the Yankees, has never had a catcher lead off. Austin Wells will get that honor opening day. Aaron Judge, team MVP. He's might be AL MVP. He might have to be for this Yankees team to continue to be World Series contenders. Cody Bellinger, going to be, I guess, in a sense, the guy that is protecting Aaron Judge. Paul Goldschmidt, talked about him already. He's going to need to a little bit of a revival. I don't think he has to be the Paul Goldschmidt of the Diamondbacks when he was peak Paul Goldschmidt, but he needs to he needs to at least hit 20 30 home runs, have a decent average. Jazz Chisholm, his first full year with the Yankees, 2020, maybe even a 30-30 candidate. I don't know if he has 30 home run power. He definitely has 30 steal speed. I'll be interested to see what Jazz Chisholm does and see if he moves around the infield anymore or if he settles down at second base. Anthony Volpe, third full year in the majors. I think they just need consistency. He's been playing good defense, and he has some hot streaks, but he has some cold streaks. I think a consistent season will go a long way for the Yankees from Volpe. Ben Rice showed flashes last year. I don't have any strong feelings on him. I think he has some promise with the bat. And if you're the Yankees, you're just hoping, especially with the short portion, right? Ben Rice can give you some home runs, drive some runs in. I don't know if he's ever going to be a high average guy. I think Ben Rice, though, will see ample at bats on the Yankees team this season. And then their two big prospects that have been in and out of the major leagues the last couple of years, Jason Dominguez and Oswaldo Cabrera. If there ever is a time for those guys to step up, get higher in the order, prove they belong, prove or not prove, but live up to the hype they have as prospects, this is the year for both of them to do it. Rotation. Carlos Rodon and Max Fried start off with two lefties. It's interesting, I think, because I think Fried is probably better than Rodon, but Rodon is starting opening day off. I expect both of those guys to be fixtures in the top 3 or 4 of that rotation all season, maybe even the top 2 all year. Marcus Stroman, been around, my major league vet, seen playoff action. I'm, a above average starter, helping address the Yankees' depth, starting pitching depth problems coming into the season, especially with some of the injuries they have. Will Warren, is a guy I couldn't find a lot on. I'll be interested to see, how he lives up to the Yankees, but I don't know. I sometimes think the Yankees the last couple of years maybe aren't find guys who maybe aren't top prospects but still have potential, and they come out and pitch for the Yankees really well. So I wouldn't be shocked to see at least an average performance from Will Warren this year. And then Carlos Carrasco, another vet who has been through it all, seen it all, and should be average to above average and should be able to eat some innings up for the Yankees. Notable bullpen arms. Devin Williams, obviously the big name coming over, their new closer instead of Clay Holmes. Got to think that that's an upgrade. Luke Weaver and Mark Leiter Jr., both also solid back-end options. Most of these notable bullpen arms will be back-end guys because that's the important part of your bullpen, right? You get a starter that can give you 6 or 7 innings. Who are you passing it off to in the back end? Can they shut the game down? And I think the Yankees have a pretty good back-end group of guys, especially with their closer, to shut games down when they get it, assuming they get that far with the lead. And then to return from injury, obviously, Garrett Cole is not going to return this season from injury. That's obviously a big hit. That's your opening day starter. That's your ace. They will not have him this season. Luis Gil, Rookie of the Year last year. He's going to be out for a couple months to start the year. Giancarlo Stanton, hurt. I feel like the Yankees are used to Stanton being in and out of lineup. He still adds power from the right-hand side. Yankees will get him back, and I expect to see him DHing. Who knows? If Ben Rice plays well enough, maybe that's a lefty-righty sub thing. I don't know if you want to put Stanton in the outfield too much, especially if Jason Dominguez is playing well. Clark Schmidt, another starter with a good year last year, is going to be out to start the year, will be back before the end of the year. And then the Yankees, assuming their starting pitching gets healthy, going to have a pretty good starting rotation. It's already pretty good. It's only going to get better throughout the year. DJ LeMahieu, another guy who recently has been in and out, can play anywhere in the infield. I expect him to come and get some at-bats and fill in where necessary. And then Loaizaga and Matzek are good middle relievers that will help the Yankees bullpen when they get healthy as well. And yes, you don't see my prediction for the record. I will get to that at the end of the division. So for now, I'm going to move to the team that finished second last year in the Baltimore Orioles, 91-71. Good season. Got swept out of the playoffs again. Who did they add this offseason that is of note? Tyler O'Neill, big righty power bat. That's something it felt like the Orioles were missing all season last year. A consistent right-hander that can hit home runs and drive runs in. They addressed it in Tyler O'Neill. Now the question is, does he stay healthy for a whole season, which he seems unable to do. Gary Sanchez, new backup catcher. I think James McCann is maybe a little bit better defensively than Gary Sanchez, but I think Gary Sanchez will give them more offense and more pop from that backup right-handed catcher. And then Charlie Morton, the guy who just can't die, right? 41 years old. He's played for multiple World Series level teams, won World Series, had some really good seasons. Last year was not one of them. What does he look like this year? And then Tomoyuki Sugano, 35-year-old, coming over from Japan after playing over a decade in Japan. How does Sugano perform against Major League hitting? All but one of his spring starts were good. Can he carry that into the regular season for an Orioles rotation that's going to need somebody to step up? Who did they lose? They lost their ace, Corbin Burns, and they still don't really have one. Anthony Santander, a fan favorite, a guy who was there throughout the rebuild, and I kind of the writing was on the wall when the Orioles signed Tyler O'Neill before Anthony Santander signed. You weren't going to sign Santander after signing O'Neill, and Santander went to their rivals, the Blue Jays, and that's probably going to feel good for some Orioles fans. But a big, career year last year. He solidly hits 30 plus home runs a year. Last year, he hit over 40. That's going to be a big hole in the middle of their lineup, driving in runs that somebody like Tyler O'Neill's going to have to fill. Danny Coulomb was a vet leader, good piece out of the bullpen. Same thing with Jacob Webb. They both ate some good innings before they got hurt the last 2 years. Who fills their gap in the pen this year? Projected opening day lineup. Colton Cowser. I think he's going to lead off. Adley Rutschman has led off for this team, and I think they're missing their leadoff, established leadoff hitter. Even if Gunnar Henderson was healthy for the Orioles, I truthfully don't think they want him leading off long term. You want Gunnar Henderson to be up with guys on base. Cowser, I think I see him getting a chance there with his speed. Adley Rutschman is like a permanent 2-hole hitter for them. He's not leaving that hole unless he goes 0 for 50. Ryan O'Hearn, playing a righty. O'Hearn will be in there. He and Mountcastle in that DH first base role, playing lefty-righty matchups. Jordan Westburg, a guy who got hurt, and it hurt the Orioles down the stretch last year with how much time he missed. It hurt them offensively. Kind of a freak play, getting hit by a pitch in his hand. A strong right-handed at bat. I could see him and O'Neill getting flipped at the 4 and 5. I can see O'Neill playing 4 and Westburg being 5. But both of those are supposed to be strong right-handed at bats. How much of a step forward does Jordan Westburg take offensively in the second full year in the majors? Tyler O'Neill, I've already talked about. Ryan Mountcastle had the best season of his career in his rookie year, hit over 30 home runs, has not eclipsed that number since. Can Ryan Mountcastle, A, stay healthy, and B, can that moving in that wall in Camden Yards help not just Mountcastle, but O'Neill and Westburg, some of their other power options? What does Mountcastle do? He will be a big piece for this team at first base. Cedric Mullins, the veteran leader. Maybe he's not the 30-30 guy that he once was, but can he give you 10 to 20 home runs and 30-plus stolen bases while still playing great center field defense? That's what Cedric Mullins needs to do for this team to be successful. Jackson Holliday, playing the position he was drafted with at shortstop instead of second with Gunnar Henderson out. I think they are, based off of spring, it looks like they want Jackson Holliday to be the leadoff guy. Can he be the leadoff guy? And then Ramon Urias with Gunnar Henderson and Jorge Mateo maybe not being ready for opening day. Ramon Urias, been on the Oriole for a while now, gets the start. Rotation. Again, this rotation, Corbin Burns left, and they have some injuries I'll get to. Kind of lacking a little bit. Zach Eflin was great with the Orioles down the stretch last year. Veteran presence. He has the opening day start. Charlie Morton, another veteran you're hoping can find a little bit left in the tank and have a good year for you, especially because he didn't have a great year last year. Sugano, big question mark. There's a world where he's a really, really good Japanese pitcher against Major League pitchers, and there's a world where he doesn't quite pan out. Which one happens? Dean Kramer, kind of just your average starting pitcher, should eat a lot of innings for the Orioles. He's been there a long time. They have familiarity with him. And then Cade Povich, a rookie who struggled last year when he first came up a little bit, but also showed some flashes, ended the year well, had a great spring, and actually will be starting the home opener for the Orioles. Cade Povich is also a guy that, you're hoping takes a step up. He needs to take a step up for the Orioles to be good. And with how many starting pitchers are injured and coming back for the Orioles, if you don't perform well, you could be out of the rotation quick. Notable bullpen arms, they got their closer Felix Bautista back. He was absolutely dominant in 2023 before he had to get Tommy John, and he is back for them. Their setup man, Yennier Cano, has found consistency and as a great setup man. I'm interested in Albert Suarez. He was a great story last year. Long reliever for the Orioles. He will be going to the bullpen as Cade Povich is the fifth starter instead of him. I'm interested to see what happens with Albert Suarez as guys get healthy, assuming everybody performs. Is there still a spot for him on the roster? And then another guy I would keep an eye on is Sir Anthony Dominguez. He was the closer after post trade deadline last year. If Felix Bautista struggles a little bit, do they give up on him and move to Dominguez, or are they sticking with Felix Bautista no matter what? Returning from injury, Gunnar Henderson. If you're an Orioles fan, you're hoping it's sooner rather than later. The sooner he's in the lineup, the better for this team, especially because they might have to rely on their offense, scoring a lot of runs to win games this year. Kyle Bradish, another guy that's coming back from Tommy John. Hopefully you get him back in June, most likely after the All-Star break, but he was absolutely dominant and started the playoff game for you in 2023 before getting hurt in 2024. Tyler Wells is another guy. He's been in the bullpen. He's been a starter for the Orioles. He's had some really good stretches. He should be coming back as well, kind of on a similar timeline to Bradish. Grayson Rodriguez is supposed to be out very long. He hasn't had a healthy full season yet, but he's been great when he's in the lineup. Hopefully he returns earlier in the spring, but it's not good to see elbow problems. Anytime you have elbow problems with a starting pitcher, it's dangerous. And then Kyle Gibson, while he's not hurt, he is also not ready to go. He was a late signing. He has familiarity with the Orioles. He's another guy who's not going to go out there and win a Cy Young, but he can be an average starter and eat up innings, which is very valuable in today's MLB with all the pitcher injuries. Keep an eye on Kyle Gibson getting stretched out and potentially knocking somebody out of the rotation. The Boston Red Sox, lots of key additions here. Lots of, and not really, a couple of key subtractions. Additions, Garrett Crochet, elite starting pitcher, left-handed, breakout season last year. Alex Bregman, multiple World Series winning third base, very good player that was part of the Astros core for a long time. Walker Buehler, two-time World Series champion. This is going to be his first full season back from Tommy John. What does he look like after arguably being the best pitcher in the World Series last year? Patrick Sandoval, another great left-handed pitcher that they got from the Angels. And then Aroldis Chapman. Everybody knows Aroldis Chapman, the flamethrower, probably looking to be the Red Sox closer. Key subtractions, Tyler O'Neill. Talked about him already, going to a division rival. How do you replace that production? Kenley Jansen, he's been their closer the last couple of years. Aroldis Chapman seems to be replacing him. Nick Pivetta, that's an above-average starting pitcher that eats up a lot of innings. How do they replace that? Well, they've signed a multitude of guys to do so. And Danny Jansen is gone as well. They made a trade to get him from the Blue Jays, and now he's on the Rays. Apparently, Danny Jansen is not allowed to leave the AL East. Projected lineup, opening day. Jarren Duran, he's been their leadoff guy. Phenomenal year last year, not talked about enough. Is he still going to get better, or is this his peak? I don't know, but he's a really good player. Should be the best player on the team. Well-rounded offensively and defensively. Rafael Devers, another one of the Red Sox best players. Huge power threat. Left-handed bat in Fenway. Super fun to watch. It seems like after being hesitant at first, he's fine DHing and moving off of third base. For the guy batting after him, Alex Bregman, they're going to need a big season. Last year, I think Alex Bregman dipped a little bit. He's going to need to get back to doing Alex Bregman things. And while you are confident in this top three carrying your offense, the Red Sox have worried me 4 through 9. Tristan Casas has all the power in the world, shown some flashes, but I think there's also stretches where he struggled. He needs to get some consistency, but he is a young player, so there's still plenty of time for that. Trevor Story, obviously past his prime, but does he still have some left? Can he stay healthy? I feel like he's hurt every single year. Connor Long, I actually think he's a decent offensive catcher, a decent defensive catcher. He's going to have to just be, average catcher productiveness, maybe a little bit more than average catcher for them to be good offensively. And then these bottom three, I think, are very interesting. Obviously, Christian Campbell is a top prospect, and I don't think they have much competition at second. So you want him to, even if it doesn't happen right away, you want him to live up to his hype, live up to the player he's supposed to be, even if it means he takes a month or two to figure it out. If he plays to his capability, they're going to be really good. Abreu and Rafaela. I mean, they're both good defensive pieces, can move around, especially Abreu. What are what are Abreu and Rafaela going to give you offensively? Can they get on base and maybe add some pressure with speed, especially Rafaela? What can they give to you offensively? I think the Red Sox can be really good offensively, but they're going to need some of these guys that maybe haven't been consistent or are question marks to step up to do so. Their rotation, Garrett Crochet had a great season last year. I'm a little bit worried about Garrett Crochet making a whole season. Because he kind of really didn't last year and he's never done it before. So, how does his arm react to a full season? It's always good to have a dominant ace lefty, and the Red Sox have that. Tanner Houck, no stranger to the Red Sox fans, firmly entrenched in the two. Walker Buehler, again, how does he look his first full season when before he got Tommy John, he was arguably one of the best pitchers in baseball, looked really, really good. Can you get that guy to come out this year further removed from Tommy John? If so, your rotation is that much better. And then a couple of young guys who have been around the major leagues a little bit in Richard Fitz and Quinn Priester. I don't think they're going to be there the whole season. If they're there the whole season, the Red Sox have other issues. But can they be good enough to keep you close and keep you in the pennant race early in the season? That's really what their job is to do. And in a way, maybe they could be fighting for their jobs, right? If they pitch really well, you're not going to want to take them out of the lineup. So there is that motivation to do well. Notable bullpen arms, Aroldis Chapman. What Aroldis Chapman are we getting? Sometimes he has a tendency to not be the elite closer he's capable of. Liam Hendricks, another guy, great story, has had some really good years as a closer, and I think that if Chapman struggles, Hendricks is just as capable of being the closer. But that's a pretty good 8-9 combination, I think, especially with all of their years of experience. And then Justin Slayton's probably going to be that 7th inning guy. Maybe even the 6th inning flamethrower. That's a pretty good trio of guys to have at the back of your bullpen. And then returning from injury is a pretty big list. Brian Bello, Lucas Giolito, Cutter Crawford, and Patrick Sandoval. I don't know if there's 4 spots to be had in the starting rotation, but all 4 of those guys could be in just about any team's major league rotation. Bello was one of the Red Sox best pitchers last year. I think he's a little bit up and down, but he's still a young guy. Giolito, former top prospect, has some good years, has some pretty darn bad years as well. Can't get healthy right now, but once he does, how good will he be for the Red Sox? Cutter Crawford, he's just a fun name, fun pitcher. He definitely has earned a spot in that Red Sox rotation. And Sandoval's another lefty that has all the stuff in the world. Just can he be consistent? I'm interested to see how many of those 4 guys end up in the rotation when they're healthy. But again, it never hurts to have starting pitching depth, and the Red Sox certainly have that. I think they could be the best rotation in the AL if guys get healthy and play the way they're capable. And then Romy Gonzalez is a great utility piece, but he's not adding much offensively. But still, it's always good to have positional flexibility. And then Yoshida, big power bat. He's not really going to do much other than play corner outfields and DH, and you're hoping he can give you 20 home runs with a decent average. I do expect to see Yoshida back and regularly in the lineup. Moving on to the Rays with the fourth place finish. In typical Ray fashion, they didn't spend a lot of money. Key additions, Ha-Sung Kim. Infield utility, he's going to be moved around, probably going to be starting every day. I still think I see him at shortstop most of the time. Danny Jansen, a guy who's had some pretty good years. Has been a good offensive catcher in his career. Maybe not as much last year. Little bit of a low risk piece, I think, for the Rays. And then key subtractions, they lost Jose Siri and they lost Jeffrey Springs. I don't think the Rays always care when they lose starting pitchers. Because they seem to just never run out of them. Whenever they lose one, they just magically create one that you've never heard of, and he's really good. The Rays pitching lab needs to be studied. Projected opening day lineup from me: Yandy Diaz and Curtis Mead, I think, are going to go back and forth for DH and first base. I put Yandy Diaz at DH to start, and Brandon Lowe. Both of those guys, Rays fans should be familiar with. They are probably your longest tenured everyday players for if you're a Rays fan. Junior Caminero and Josh Lowe. That's a pretty good top four. I don't think it's as good as the other teams in the division top four, but I see a lot of on base. I don't know if I see a lot of power out of this group, but I see them getting on base and just being pesky hitters, fouling off pitches, finding ways to get pitch count up, and then getting on base. Christopher Morel, who they got from the Cubs at the deadline last year. I'm interested to see if the Rays can help turn his career around. He has I would say, a good amount of potential, but hasn't always lived up to it. Can the Rays fix that? Curtis Mead has been a top prospect. He's kind of bounced around positionally, and I think the Rays are going to give him all the opportunity in the world this season to live up to that top prospect status. Danny Jansen I already talked about. And I don't know how I feel about Johnny DeLuca. Is he a long-term solution? Probably not. Is the Rays, have some other guys, and maybe there might be some trades in the works at the deadline. And then Taylor Walls, I mean, not a everyday major league player. I don't expect him to do much other than fill in and give guys days off once Ha-Seong Kim is healthy and in the lineup every day. Rotation, again, this has some good pieces from last year and some guys I think that are going to get better. Ryan Pepio was really good last year. Taj Bradley, another solid piece. Drew Rasmussen, I expect to be a typical Rays guy. Shane Baz, top pitching prospect for the Rays. How does he do in a full season? I think he could end up having a really good year and establishing himself as a every 5-day starter. Zach Littell, I think, will have a little bit. I think he'll have an above average season. It's just so weird with the Rays because these guys have been good, they've been bad. Can they be consistently good? I think they have that possibility. And the Rays pitching lab, like I've said, seems to just make guys be good out of nowhere. Pete Fairbanks, the closer, kind of like that. One of the better closers in the game. Depending on how the Rays season goes, he might not be there all year. Edwin Uceta and Garrett Clevenger. Another good back end of the bullpen. But as I said, the Rays always have a good bullpen. They always figure out how to have starters. There could be somebody not even on this list that ends up being the Rays' most dominant pitcher. It's just how the Rays operate. Still to return from injury, I've said it multiple times already, Ha-Seong Kim will be back for the Rays, and then their ace, one of the better pitchers in baseball who has been out, it feels like forever, with Tommy John, Shane McClanahan, will be back this year. It's just a matter of when. And to finish out the AL East, the last place team from last year, the Toronto Blue Jays, definitely have been trying to spend money the last two off seasons. Definitely spent some this offseason, although it might not have been as much as they originally wanted to with some of the big name guys they were involved in. Key additions, getting Santander to be that switch hitting, power hitting guy in the middle of your lineup. Getting him from your division rival makes it even better. The trade for Andres Gimenez to help shore up second base defensively and add a little bit offensively. What does Max Scherzer have for them at this stage in his career? Can he even offer maybe some veteran leadership for some younger guys? Yimi Garcia, they traded him at the trade deadline and they re-signed him, so he really, I feel like he never really left the Blue Jays. And then Jeff Hoffman to be the closer to fill in for one of their key subtractions in Jordan Romano. And then Spencer Horwitz, a promising young player that they gave up in the Gimenez deal. Projected opening day lineup. And I got to tell you, the first 6 of this, and maybe eventually in the year, the rest of it, sounds very formidable. Bo Bichette starting at shortstop. He desperately needs a rebound year, especially if he wants to get paid. He's been a top 10, arguably top 5 shortstop, had some power, had some speed. Had a down year last year. Can he rebound this year? Vladimir Guerrero Jr., obviously your best player. They kind of go as he goes in some ways. Left-handed power bat. Going to hit a lot of home runs. Anthony Santander, how does he adjust? Does he to a new team? Does he play as well as he did with the Orioles? And which player is he? Is he the 30 home run per year guy that he was the last 2 or 3 years? Or is he the 40-plus home run guy he was last year in his contract year? I lean towards the 30-plus home run guy, especially as he gets older. George Springer, guy with World Series experience. I don't think he's been quite the guy the Blue Jays hoped for. when they signed him, but he's still been decent. I still think he has some in the tank. Can he rebound? If those top four guys can play well, this Blue Jays team could be really, really well because it's really, really good and be a threat to win the division. But that's already quite a few ifs. Alejandro Kirk, a solid catcher. Obviously, he doesn't hit too many home runs, has that capability. He's very much a I'm going to take long at bats. I'm not going to strike out kind of guy. Make your pitchers throw a lot of pitches to me. Andres Gimenez, uh, good ad by the Blue Jays, especially at a position of need. Does he get better with more offensive help around him? Does he get worse? What happens to Gimenez? Nathan Lukes, a young guy that got some run at the end of last year. I'm very interested to see how he progresses. Ernie Clement and Will Wagner. There's the 7-8-9. The Blue Jays need to find something from the 7-8-9 guys, even if it means trying new players, even if it means bringing some guys up from the minors if these guys aren't performing. But that 7-8-9, in order to compete in this division, is going to have to give you something offensively. Can those guys do so for the Blue Jays? The rotation, I think, is still pretty good for the Blue Jays, however. Jose Barrios and Kevin Gausman, been with the Blue Jays for a while. They both have been good for the Blue Jays. They've both been good other places. They're experienced veterans at this point. Can Barrios and Gausman pitch well to the ability that they are known for around the league, or do they still kind of start to fall off? Who knows? Chris Bassett, an older guy, sometimes good, sometimes bad. Is it good Chris Bassett? Is it bad Chris Bassett? I think he's past his better years. Max Scherzer obviously is, but what percentage of himself is he? Is he good enough to give you, still give you the strikeouts and the quality starts? I think he can still be that guy, even if it's not for much longer. And then you have the young guy in Bowden Francis bringing up the back of the rotation. Notable bullpen arms. Jeff Hoffman, brand new closer for the Blue Jays. What does Jeff Hoffman look like? And can he either do the same or improve from where Jordan Romano, who was kind of an underrated closer for the Blue Jays, did the last couple seasons? Yimi Garcia, great setup guy. And I think if Jeff Hoffman struggles a little bit, Garcia could get looks as the closer. Chad Green is another, great 6th, 7th inning guy. Maybe if your setup man is tired, he can even run an 8th inning. Good back end of the bullpen piece. And then another guy I'm very interested in, arguably the most interesting guy in the bullpen, Yariel Rodriguez. Is he going to be, are they going to look to convert him to a late inning guy and be a 1-inning power guy? Are they going to keep him in long relief and keep him stretched out? Because this is a guy who has a lot of potential that I think the organization likes as a starting pitcher. Do they move him the starting pitcher eventually, or do they just keep him in the bullpen? Maybe some of that depends on injuries. Return from injury, Dalton Varsho, elite defensive center fielder. He can wreak havoc on the bases. I still don't think he's quite hit his ceiling, but he definitely has 2020 potential with good center field defense. Can Dalton Varsho be that guy? And then 2 good bullpen pieces that can eat a lot of innings and really not lose you games, maybe not win you games all the time. But Zach Pop and Eric Swanson are both good bullpen pieces. How do they help the Blue Jays when they get back? American League East projections. So as you can see here, I added Fangraphs and Pacoda, the two best standings prediction metrics in my opinion. I like Pacoda a little bit better than Fangraphs because Fangraphs always has people too close, and I don't think they adjust it. Pacoda usually has teams a little bit more spread out, and usually seems like they get closer to what actually happens at the end of the year. And then I have my predictions where I see teams finishing. And then I averaged all of them together and came up with an average win-loss record. And at the end of this video, when I show you the average, the playoff bracket, it's going to be done based off of the average of the 3 teams. That way it's not solely on me. It's also on Fangraphs and Pacoda. But here you go. Fangraphs has all 5 teams in the division being separated by 4 games. And maybe that's a potential. I definitely think the Red Sox and Blue Jays are going to stay closer with the Yankees and Orioles this year than they did last year. I truthfully think all 4 of these teams could be in the division race in September. Obviously, health is an important factor there. I don't think the Rays can keep that much pace, but it is the Rays, and they always find a way to like never really get too bad. So who knows? The Rays rarely finish last in this division, and I expect one of the other four teams to struggle this year, even if it is unexpected. Pacoda has the Yankees finishing second and the Orioles finishing first. Kind of like me, they also seem like they're a little bit speculative of the Red Sox. The Red Sox made a lot of moves, and sometimes that works out for teams, sometimes it doesn't. And I don't know if I'm sold on the Red Sox, especially with their the bottom half of their lineup. And there's a lot of question marks in that rotation, and all it takes is some of them not to be answered correctly, if you get what I'm saying, for them to not have as good of a season as they want to. Blue Jays, I mean, they actually, Pacoda likes the Blue Jays to beat out the Yankees. This would be an interesting division race between the Yankees, the Orioles, and the Blue Jays, all finishing separated by 2 games. Again, there's, and then the Rays, they have beating out the Red Sox, not finishing last. So a little bit difference in Fangraph and Pacoda. And then you can see here my Bet on Sports predictions. I have the Orioles and the Yankees separating themselves from everybody again, having their own division lead. And then I have the Red Sox and Blue Jays potentially being close to make a run at first place, but I think they're both wild card teams, and I think they could both be really good wild card teams that can win a playoff series or two. I don't see the Rays being quite as good this year. The Rays never completely bottom out, but I also don't think they're going to finish with a winning record this year unless their starting pitching goes absolutely insane. I just don't see them being able to score a lot of runs. The average between the three of them, I have the Orioles beating the Yankees by 1 game in the division, the Blue Jays beating the Red Sox by a game for second, and then the Rays finishing at 500. Certainly interesting if it were to happen that way. Moving on to the American League Central, and I'm going to try and speed up or this is going to be too long. I'm already noticing that. Sorry, I don't want this to be 3 hours long. So sorry to you guys. The division winners from last year, Guardians. Additions, Bieber. It's kind of an addition, kind of a re-sign, right? I mean, I guess it is re-sign. John Means coming over for the Orioles. 2 guys coming off of significant injuries. Paul Sewald, a good back-end reliever. Austin Hedges, great defensive catcher. Santana, a savvy vet. Hopefully he adds some power and offense. Subtractions, 2 starting pitchers in Boyd and Cobb. Definitely guys that throw a lot of innings as well, so you're going to need to replace that. Gimenez they traded, and Josh Naylor is also gone for the Guardians, and he and his brother were pretty good offensive pieces together. Projected lineup, you're never taking Stephen Kwan out of the leadoff spot for the Guardians. Pretty good average, pretty good at getting on base, good at making contact. Jose Ramirez, your best player, your franchise. One of the most underappreciated guys in the MLB to me, doesn't get nearly as much love as a star, despite constantly being a top 10 player to me. Always a 40-40 threat. Great power, great speed, plays good defense, doesn't miss a lot of games. J-Ram is an incredible player. He's pretty much been in that 2-3 spot for the Guardians his whole career. I see him being in the 2 spot. Lane Thomas, somebody they got from the Nationals at the trade deadline, a guy who has a little bit of pop, can drive in some runs. He's going to need to do so this year. Carlos Santana, you're hoping can be your 4 batter. And you're hoping that he's the Carlos Santana that hits 25 home runs with a 240 average and can give you 70 to 80 RBIs. I think just that will be enough to get the Guardians in a good spot offensively. Big Christmas, Jackenzie Noel. He's there to hit and not much else. Maybe not great defensively, not that much speed, but he can hit the ball a long way. He's going to need to do a lot of that this year. Manzardo, I'm kind of interested in. I don't know if he's going to stay in that DH role for the Guardians all year, but if he earns it, he earns it. Bo Naylor, good catcher, had some pretty cool moments last year. His brother's not on the team anymore. Can he continue to provide power from the catcher spot? Their new second baseman, I think this is going to be more of a second base by committee, and I don't know why. I didn't write it in my notes. I'm forgetting the other option, but I think they're going to have a lefty-righty platoon. And Brian Rocchio needs, can he get better? What is he going to do? I feel like it's a question for a lot of these American League teams. Where's the offense coming at the bottom of the order, or is there no offense coming from the bottom of the order? Guardians are one of those teams. Rotation, to at least at the start of the year. Tanner Bibby, Good year last year. He's your opening year day starter. Honestly, if he replicates what he does last year, gets a little bit better, you're happy with that. Luis Ortiz, another young guy. What's he going to do? Gavin, honestly, most of this Guardian starting lineup is like the same pitcher to me because they don't have a ton of innings, but they have potential. They have the stuff, and they're all just trying to stay into prove they belong in the lineup when Bieber and Means return. Luis Ortiz, Gavin Williams. Gavin Williams had a good year last year. Ben Lively, pretty good. Logan Allen, pretty good, right? Like these guys, I think they're average to slightly above average at their best pitchers. I don't think the Guardians have depth, and I don't think the Guardians have enough like true studs. And you're hoping that a healthy Shane Bieber and a healthy John Means, when they return from injury as they're supposed to, do that for you. Notable bullpen arms. Now, if the Guardians do score a lot of runs, or even if they don't, if the Guardians have a lead late, you gotta love this back end. Cade Smith and Gaddis. I mean, shoot, they might just try and turn games into get their starters to go 6 innings. Give it to Cade Smith for the 7th, get it to Hunter Gaddis for the 8th. Most of the time, those guys are going to hold on. They're both very good pitchers, especially Gaddis. And then you have the guy who might have been the best closer in the league last year, and Emmanuel Clase. I mean, elite starting pitch, or not starter, elite closer. Um, I don't know if he can do what he did last year just because that season was so incredible, but even 90% of last year is still a phenomenal year. So if the Guardians can just figure out the starting pitching, I think that the bullpen will be good enough for them. I've already mentioned the 2 starting pitchers to return from injury. David Fry, a kind of a super utility, can plug and play in the infield and the outfield. And then their top prospect, I think, might have broken camp with them. He's hurt, Chase DeLauder. I think he definitely, if everything goes the way the Guardians want to, makes an impact this season in the outfield. The Royals, kind of a surprise last year in some ways. Finished second place, made it to the AL Divisional Series after beating the Orioles in the wild card. And what did they do this offseason? To add to Bobby Witt and Salvador Perez, they added Jonathan India, Michael Lorenzen, and Carlos Estevez. India, kind of an infielder. I see him at second base or third base for this team. Lorenzen, above average starter, going to help eat a lot of innings, and a solid closer for the Royals. Who did they lose? They lost Brady Singer, starting pitcher Adam Frazier, savvy vet platoon guy Tommy Pham, another platoon guy, another savvy vet Paul DeJong. I never remember how to say it, and Yuli Gurriel, both guys with playoff experience, both vets. You know, the Royals really, I mean, all these guys, veteran players, know the league, know how to perform, and a lot of the batters were kind of very good platoon guys to play matchups with. So what does their lineup look like this year? I see Jonathan India leading off. Bobby Witt, Vinny Pasquantino, and Salvador Perez are never leaving the 2, 3, and 4 hole. I think when healthy, the Royals are playing those guys 2, 3, and 4 every single day. I don't know why that has Vinny Pasquantino listed as a catcher when he's DHing and Salvador Perez is catcher, but my bad on that. Jonathan India, though, you're hoping he can give you on base. I think India has a little bit of pop when he's playing the way he should. But you want him to get on and just give Witt, Pasquantino, and Perez opportunities to drive runs in. The Royals desperately need Hunter Renfroe to have a rebound season. Renfroe's a guy capable of hitting 30 home runs, has a laser beam of an arm in right field. That's the Hunter Renfroe they need this year. MJ Melendez has kind of been a guy that's appeared for this Royals team last year, the end of 2023, as they got better. What does Mark Canha do? You know, a platoon bat. Probably he's not an everyday starter. Does he give you enough power at the bottom? And then Massey and Isbell, I think, are kind of bottom of the order guys in there for defense. If they do make it on the base pass, though, they're both fast guys that can steal bases. And this Royals team loves to do that, led by their best player, Bobby Witt Jr. This is a pretty good rotation, too. The dominant lefty in Reagans with a breakout year last year. I expect him to continue to get better. Seth Lugo, with another guy with a great year last year. You want to talk about how good they were. Look what they did to the Orioles, one of the better offenses in the MLB in the playoffs. These guys started both games and they were dominant. Michael Wacha, a guy who's had an up and down career, seemed to find something with the Royals last year. Michael Lorenzen, another veteran guy who has thrown a lot of innings, and the Royals are hoping they get a lot of innings out of him this year. And then Chris Bubich, another guy familiar with the Royals, and not the worst number 5 starter to have at all. Carlos Estevez, hoping that he can be the closer. He's a solid closer, not the best closer in the MLB. He's definitely not the worst. You're hoping he can convert on a high percentage of his opportunities, especially with this offense and pitching staff probably going to give him a lot. Louis Urseg was great, and I think that he also has a chance to be the closer if Estevez slips a little bit. Zerpa has been another back-end option. And then Hunter Harvey was the closer for the Nationals, has closing experience, has high pressure, high leverage, late inning situations in his experience. I would look out for him to be a factor in the Royals at some point in the season as well. Waiting to return from injury, they have Blake Mitchell, backup catcher, and Alec March, a starting pitcher, who I want to see if he even makes the rotation after these 5 guys get going to start the year. Third place in the AL Central this year, the Tigers. Key additions after trading away at the trade deadline. They signed Jack Flaherty back. He looks like he's the Jack Flaherty of old. Jose Urquidy has had some really good years with the Astros. Maybe just some good, not really good. There's definitely some left in the tank there for him to be a above average, good starting pitcher. Alex Cobb, another guy. He was really good with the Giants. He was okay last year, and somebody you can rely on to eat innings. Tommy Kahnle has a pretty good history out of the bullpen. Another veteran you can rely on. Gleyber Torres, new everyday second baseman for the Tigers, somebody who played in the World Series last year and has played in a lot of playoffs with the Yankees. And I don't think they lost anybody that's going to be too important to success, at least in my opinion. So look out for this Tigers team this year. Projected opening day lineup. I think they kind of are forced to starting Manuel Margot and putting him at the leadoff spot. I think that's more of a, again, I don't think they want to do that. I just think that is what's going to happen. Gleyber Torres starting at second base. He's going to start in that 2 hole. He's been at the top of lineups before. And the Tigers, I think, are a little bit thin on offense, especially at the start of the year. Riley Green was probably your most consistent offensive player last year. I look for him to continue to get better the more and more playing time he gets in his career, the more years he plays. He's going to need to be that dominant 3 batter that so many teams have. Spencer Torkelson, a guy who still hasn't lived up to the hype that he had when he was drafted and came up. But he's still super young. It's too early to give up on him. He still has that raw ability. Can this be the year that he puts it all together? Maybe. Colt Keith, decent year last year, has been with the team. He, just kind of a replacement level average guy. Andy Ibanez, I think, is kind of similar, maybe below average. Can Kerry Carpenter give you something in center field? I don't know. He's not going to be there all year. Jake Rogers is a fine catcher, and Javier Baez, a guy they're paying a lot of money to do nothing to, hasn't really been the guy the Tigers wanted him to be when they signed him. If he can ever find the old form from when he was with the Cubs, it would be a massive help to a Tigers team that needs offense. Really, I'm very worried about the bottom of this Tigers order. I don't see a lot of guys that are going to go out there and consistently produce for you on offense, especially with all the injuries they have on offense to start the year. But maybe you don't need to score a lot of runs when you look at this pitching staff. Tariq Skubal was arguably the best pitcher in the MLB last year. He's a dominant lefty, still on a rookie deal, maybe the favorite for the Cy Young in the American League. Can he get even better? Jack Flaherty, a guy who had another incredible season, has a World Series now, is going to provide good veteran leadership. If he is even the same as he was last year, that's a heck of a 1-2 combination. Reese Olson, another guy, really doesn't have too much time in the majors. I think there's still room for him to improve, but he's still a pretty decent, he's still an above average starter that's going to give you some good innings. and hopefully keeps you in the games. Jackson Jobe, one of the best pitching prospects in the MLB. And you're like, oh wow, they have another one. Yes, they do. And if he pitches the way he's capable to, especially if he figures it out towards the as the year goes on, by the end of the year, you could have an incredible 1-2-3 punch with Skubal, Flaherty, and Job. And then Casey Mize is the guy that pitched really well a couple years ago, had some injury, went through some severe injuries, came back through stretches, and wasn't the same guy. But I think another whole offseason, a new year. Look out for Casey Mize to be a legitimate threat for the Baltimore. Or why? I don't know why I said Baltimore Orioles. I was seeing the orange and I'm thinking orange. Casey Mize can be a legitimate threat for the Detroit Tigers, especially if he can rebound and pitch the way he's capable of. They might have one of the best rotations, if not the best rotation, in the MLB. So maybe that offense I'm worried about doesn't have to be as good. Still a little bit worried about the bullpen being consistent. Bo Brisket is their closer, but I think the Tigers, all three of these guys I have listed, Bo Brisket, Tyler Holton, and Jason Foley, are all going to be in the mix to get to get saves. All of them are going to be in the mix to be closer. All of them are going to be back end guys. You really only need two of them, but you would love if all three of them can settle into that role, especially because you have so many starting pitchers capable of going deep into games and giving you good innings. To return from injury, arguably the guys that will be their three starting outfielders, at least two of the guys that will be your starting outfielders, and Wencio Perez, Parker Meadows, and Matt Vierling all will help offensively and be improvements over some of the guys that are currently in it. So they need them to come back sooner rather than later to help the team score runs. And then Alex Cobb, maybe he doesn't have a spot in the rotation. If Job gets off to a slow start, maybe Cobb comes in. But Cobb can usually eat up some innings for whatever team he is on. And then the fourth place team from last season, they still had a winning record. The Minnesota Twins. Key additions, not only two big names. Harrison Bader in the outfield, great defensive outfielder, maybe not always great offensively. Ty France, you're hoping he gives you something on the offensive end. He's kind of an average player, I would say, on terms of offensive prowess. Every once in a while, he goes on some runs. Danny Coulomb, back. Hopefully he's healthy for the Twins, an old vet who now has some playoff experience, a fun lefty out of the bullpen. They lost Kyle Farmer. They lost longtime Twin Max Kepler, and they have lost Carlos Santana. None of those are brutal, but none of them, they're still holes they need to replace. Starting our opening day projected lineup, Matt Wallner in right, Carlos Correa in short. What Carlos Correa shows up. Carlos Correa is another one of those Astros who I feel like after he left the Astros, hasn't been bad, but hasn't been as good. Maybe it's because they're not cheating anymore. I don't know. Byron Buxton, great defensive center fielder, still has speed, still has power. They need a full season of good Byron Buxton to be good this year and make a run that they feel like they might be capable of. Trevor Larnach is also in the outfield for them this year. I'm interested to see. I think they're going to put him high in the lineup, but I'm kind of interested to see how he does in that situation. A good catcher in Ryan Jeffers, capable of giving you 20 home runs from the catcher position. Jose Miranda, it's another full season in the MLB. He's still a younger player. Eventually, he needs to get it going, or he's in danger of losing his job, and get it going consistently. Edward Julian, I kind of have him in the DH. I think he'd be a couple of guys, but that's the guy I see there right now. DH spots are always up to grab because if you're the designated hitter and you're not hitting, why should you be the designated hitter? Ty France, I feel bad putting him 8. I think he can definitely move up this lineup as the year goes on. And then Willie Castro, kind of out there to play defense at second base, and you'll take whatever he gives you offensively. I think this team will figure it out offensively. I just have like a weird feeling about it, especially if Royce Lewis can ever be healthy for the majority of the season. That'll help them shift some things around. But I think this Twins team will figure it out offensively and put up enough runs for this pitching staff. Pablo Lopez, obviously he's your opening day starter. He's your ace. He's your number one. There's definitely worse number ones to have. Pablo Lopez, good season last year. Can he continue to build on it? Joe Ryan, Bailey Oberg, a pretty good 1-2-3 punch for the Twins. This pitching staff, I think, can keep the runs down. I still think Chris Paddock is a little bit of a question mark, but he's shown signs and he's had some good runs, some good seasons. What Chris Paddock is there this year, and then Simeon Woods Richardson. I don't know I don't think anybody knows what to expect. But I everything I'm reading says he's the fifth starter. I don't know. If you're the Twins, obviously you're hoping he's good, but you know, it's always nice coming into a season to be able to firmly say we have confidence in everybody starting, and I'm sure the Twins are saying that. But I still feel like that's a little bit of a question mark. They do have a really good closer if they can get it that far, and Johan Duran. And even Griffin Jacks is a good setup man that I think will be able to routinely turn the game over to the ninth inning without giving up runs. And then Cole Sands is a guy I want to keep an eye on that bullpen. I think he's due to have a pretty good year as a reliever. Relievers are so hard to hit on, but I like Cole Sands this year for the Twins. Not too many guys hurt. Brooksley, infield, can move him around. Royce Lewis, everybody knows what he's capable of, but he's always hurt. Can they find a way to keep him healthy? And then Walter Jenkins, that's an injury. I think they're expecting Jenkins to eventually make this step up to the MLB and have a good year, and I think they need him to at some point. They're going to need contributions from Jenkins if they want to make the playoffs this season. And then the last place team in this division, the team that I think got some of them into the playoffs due to being literally probably the worst team in MLB history, giving these teams lots of free wins last season. The Chicago White Sox, as you can see, an awful 41 and 121. Key additions for them: Martin Perez, another, adding a veteran guy that they're hoping can have a decent first half and they can trade at the trade deadline. That's a veteran that wants a World Series, but White Sox, they're hoping that they can get him pitching to where he was in some of the better years of his career. Talkman, Rojas, both of those guys, I think, are kind of just replacement level MLB guys that are just looking to get some playing time, and you're hoping do something with it. And then the two biggest names, Kyle Teal and Braden Montgomery, the two biggest names in the Garrett Crochet trade with the Red Sox. Maybe both of these guys make the majors. Maybe they threaten it, but these are the guys you're watching if you're the White Sox this year. You traded your best player for him. Hopefully it was worth it, right? One's a catcher, one's an outfielder. Both were first-round picks from the Red Sox. Do either of them make the major leagues and give the White Sox fan hope this year? I don't know. If you're the White Sox, you're not in any hurry to compete, that's for sure. Key subtractions, I just talked about Garrett Crochet going, Michael Soroka gone, and Yoan Moncada, kind of like one of the last two guys from those White Sox teams that were making the playoffs. He was supposed to be a long-time player. I don't think he ever reached his potential, but maybe somewhere else that's better, he hits that and is an everyday third baseman or utility guy. Projected lineup, and folks, there's not a lot I have to say about it because it's rough. So I'm just going to read you this lineup, and you may be like, yes, I remember this guy from this good season 5 years ago, or I don't know who it is. But I'm just going to read the lineup and not say much about it because it's so bad I think it speaks for itself. Austin Slater, right field. Luis Robert Jr., that he can't be on the White Sox by the end of the year, but center fielder. Andrew Benintendi, DH or left field. Andrew Vaughn, first base. Matt Tice, catcher. Miguel Vargas, third. Lennon Souza, second. Michael A. Taylor, left. Jacob Amaya, shortstop. Maybe there's two or three guys there that start on other teams, but this is looks like to be another rough season in store for the South Side. Rotation, kind of the same thing. Sean Burke, Davis Martin, Martin Perez, Shane Smith, and Jonathan Cannon. Yeah, maybe you're hoping one of those starting pitchers shows something they haven't shown yet, and I'll leave it at that. Well, in terms of notable bullpen arms, it's the three guys, and any of the three of them could be closers. They don't know who the closer is yet. I see all of these guys getting chances. Granted, if you're on the White Sox, maybe you'll see one or two chances a week at closing a game down, unless they shock the world. And really, the only significant injury to them is Josh Rojas, who should be back relatively soon after the start of the season. American League Central projections. We're there, guys. I have the Guardians. Or no, Fangraphs has the Guardians. I'm always trying to say I have them, but I don't have them. It's not my projections. Fangraphs has the Guardians taking a step back to 78 and 84 this year. That's a bold prediction in some respects, but I kind of talked about when we got to them why that could be. Fangraphs has the Royals at 81 and 81 at 500, the Tigers at 82 and 80, the Twins winning the division at 83 and 79. Again, another close division race, and then they have the White Sox at 63 and 99. Another tight division race. I think Fangraphs must love doing that. Pacoda has the Guardians doing a little bit better, but still not with a winning record at 80 and 82. The Royals, it has with a winning record at 82 and 80. It has the Tigers struggling this season, probably not due to their pitching, but due to their offense at 78 and 84. And the Twins winning the division comfortably at 87 and 75. And the White Sox finishing comfortably last at 62 and 100. Now, I think there's always at least one American League Central team that comes out of nowhere, and because they and wins a whole bunch of games, is threatening for a bye in the playoffs. I truthfully think like every year that happens. I don't know who it's going to be this year. It can be any of the 4 teams not named the White Sox, but I also think the White Sox are so bad that it can do what it did last year and give some teams that if they were in other divisions probably don't finish with a winning record and make the playoffs. Now, I will give the American League Central credit. When they did finally make the playoffs, they did take advantage of the opportunity. But when you have a team that's so bad in unbalanced divisions and uneven scheduling, it leads to those kind of things. And I think the White Sox are going to be really bad again, even if they're not as bad, which will help the other 4 teams in this division get wins. I still don't love any of the 4 teams. I think all 4 teams have holes. However, here's my predictions. I have the Guardians at 81 and 81, right around 500 all season. I have the Royals a little bit better than 500, but still not great at 83 and 79. Tigers at 500. I think the Tigers might be one of the best pitching staffs in the league. Still incredibly worried about their offense. I have them at 500 with the Guardians. Twins, I have them scraping above 500 at 82 and 80. I'm worried about the back end of their lineup in the back end of their pitching staff. And then I have the White Sox even worse than the other 2 because I think they're going to be really bad this year. Big shock at 58 and 104, and they may be worse than that. So if you were to take the average of all of them, Guardians below 500 at 79.67 and 82.33. Excuse me. Royals finishing with a winning record. Love it when it adds up to even numbers. I did not purposely do that on my end, I promise. I just legitimately, I put my records down first before putting down Fangraphs and Pacoda, so it just happened to work out that way. But the Royals at 82 and 80. Tigers slightly below 500 at 80.33 and 81.67. Twins winning the division partially because such a strong score from Pacoda has them winning the division at 84 and 78, and then the White Sox being incredibly bad at 61 and 101. That's still somehow a 20-game improvement from last year, and I don't know if they get to 60 wins this year, but I would like to think they at least get to 50. Let's move on to the last division in the American League West, which might be the best division this year. The Houston Astros, a lot of big pieces left. They also got some guys in. Christian Walker and Isaac Paredes seem to be the everyday starters in the corners. Hayden Wesneski should help shore up the bullpen. And Brendan Rodgers, he's not guaranteed anything, but he can play up the middle at second or short. And he's had some good years for the Rockies. He used to be a high prospect. I still think he has some unscratched potential. Maybe the Astros can help him find it. Key subtractions, though. Kyle Tucker and Bregman, 2 of your core pieces. That I don't think there's anybody ready to replace either one of those guys, even in the aggregate. I definitely, those are 2 huge losses for the Astros. Obviously, Bregman was ready to move on. And for Kyle Tucker, if you're not going to be able to reach a long-term extension, it makes sense to trade and try and get something back, which is exactly what they did. Yusei Kikuchi, gone, leaving a hole in the starting lineup. Verlander, gone. He barely pitched. Your closer from last year, and Prezzi's gone, and another starter, and Jose Urquidy is gone. A lot of holes to fill for the Astros. How did they do it? Well, in their lineup, they still have Altuve, moving him out to the outfield instead of the infield. Jose Altuve, Mr. Houston Astros. Isaac Paredes, manning the hot corner, as I already said. I kind of like him in the 2-hole, getting on base. He'll hit you maybe 20 home runs, but he's going to get on base a lot. Bat 300 plus. I think he's capable of it. Look out for Paredes, and he should be helpfully moving Altuve over. So Yordan Alvarez, your best hitter, going to hit a lot of home runs, going to hit for average, can get him in. Christian Walker, you're hoping he can hit 30 home runs. Definitely should be over 20, and he's going to need to if this Astros team wants to be successful. Jeremy Pena, I think he's gotten a little bit better each year. Does that continue? Yanir Diaz, I don't know if you should expect too much. And then the bottom 3 is where I'm really worried for them. Cam Smith, Mauricio Dubon, and Jake Myers, all guys the Astros have familiarity with. Maybe even some of these guys, aren't starting every day. They might be platooning. Which one of these guys can step up? Because I think the Astros need some of these bottom of the order guys that haven't consistently been good offensively to be good offensively for them to have a chance this year. Who does it? In the rotation, Framber Valdez, he's been their one for a while. He's an elite option, great left-handed pitcher. I expect him to stay there. You have the young guys, and Hunter Brown, Spencer Arrighetti, and Ronel Blanco, all of which kind of made strides last year and kind of made their name known last year. Hopefully, their second full year of Major League action, they continue to get better and make a step forward. And then Hayden Wesneski, I expect to be the 5. And I don't really know what to expect from Wesneski, but I think he can. I think that there are worse number 5 guys, and I think there's some rotations he'd be even higher in. And I think the Astros, for the first time in a while, the strength of this team might end up being the rotation over the offense. However, those top 4 guys offensively are pretty good for the Astros. Their closer, they still have a dominant closer in Josh Hader and a great setup guy in Brian Abreu. That is an incredible 1-2 punch at the back end of their bullpen. If they can have a lead late, I doubt that they will relinquish it too many times. And then another good back end middle relief guy, Taylor Scott. It's nice to have 2 guys at the back end of your bullpen, but I think every team needs 3 to be truly competitive. To return from injury, Lance McCullers, longtime Astro. I feel like he's hurt more than he plays. What can he provide to the team this year? Christian Javier, another potential starting option. Luis Garcia right there. They got and Forrest Whitley, a good piece out of the bullpen. They have a lot of pitchers. They need to get healthy. Some might move into the starting lineup. Some will go to the bullpen. But I already think the rotation might be their strong suit as these guys get healthy. I think it will definitely be the case. Seattle Mariners, when healthy, might have the best rotation in baseball, but let's get into their additions. I got ahead of myself there. And subtractions, biggest addition, Donovan Solano, somebody that can play a lot of games. They can move around the infield as needed. Key subtractions, Yimi Garcia, Josh Rojas, Luis Urias, and Justin Turner. Losing some infield depth pieces, some guys with experience, and a good relief pitcher. So how do they move on? They get Victor Robles. I don't know if that signing's. I mean, they already had him, but I think Victor Robles is still young enough where he can still unlock a lot in his game. He was a really, really highly regarded prospect for a reason, and I still think he's young enough to find that. Julio Rodriguez, your franchise, 30-30, potentially a 40-40 guy, maybe. Incredible player. He's going to give you great defense as well. One of the young stars of this game. Cal Riley. Kind of came out of nowhere. I feel like when he came up, but he's reliably a 20 plus. He's going to get close to 30, maybe even 30 home runs a year. Randy Arozarena kind of took a step back from where he was last year. Can he find his old form? If he does, it'll be a massive help for this Mariners offense. Luke Raley, another one of those corner batter guys who play the corner of the infield. What does he give you offensively? You're hoping he gets he's not going to have a high average. He's not going to see a lot of bases, but can he drive runs in and can he hit timely home runs? That's what you need out of Rayleigh. Jorge Polanco, a guy who's had some very good offensive years. I think he can even make a run, and you could see him at 1 or 2 if he plays the way he's capable of. But I have him at 6 for now just because you don't know if you're getting good or bad Jorge Polanco. Rowdy Tellez at DH, another left-handed power hitter, experience in the MLB with the Blue Jays and the Pirates. How many home runs can he give you? Because that's what he's on the team to do. J.P. Crawford, I don't know what to expect out of Ryan Bliss. Does he end up platooning with some other guys? That seems like it could be likely. And then J.P. Crawford had a good year last year, finding ways to extend his career. I have him at the 9 hole. I believe he might have bat lead off a couple times last year for the Mariners. Can this Mariners lineup consistently score enough runs? Because there is a lot of question marks about guys who are ascending, guys who are descending. Can enough of those question marks be answered where this rotation can go out there and eat? Because wow, is it a good rotation. Luis Castillo, been around a long time, knows the MLB, consistently a good pitcher for whatever team he's on. Logan Gilbert, an up-and-coming ace pitcher. He might be the best pitcher on this team by the end of the year. Bryce Miller, another, and Brian Wu, both of those guys, young guys who have great stuff and are pitching incredibly well. Maybe part of it's because the Mariners have a very pitcher-friendly park, but this starting lineup is elite. What does Emerson Hancock do with the opportunity to start? I don't think he have it all year, but can he take advantage of this opportunity? Only time will tell. Notable bullpen arm, Andres Munoz. I would say he's an above-average closer. He has great stuff, has a flamethrower, just like most closers. He's going to win you the majority of the games he comes in. Colin Snyder, another great piece to have in the back pen, or at the back end, probably going to be your setup man. I don't know if he will be all year. Gregory Santos, another great back end of the bullpen guy. However, I think both of those guys could get surpassed by Matt Brash when he comes back. Brash has had some good years consecutively for the Mariners and has some great stuff. And then George Kirby, another elite pitcher for the Mariners, had a great year last year. Starting in the season hurt, but when he gets back, it's only going to make what could be the best rotation in the MLB stronger. Only time will tell. The Texas Rangers, 2023 World Series champs, missed the playoffs in 2024 last year. They still had a good record. They fell just short. Key additions. I don't think that record is right for them. It might be. I don't know. I think I got it confused with another team. So I apologize for that. That normally doesn't happen. I think somebody's messing with my stuff. Some of the people I might have helping with me, because I swear that was right when I first did it. And now I'm recording and don't want to change it. So we're just going to live with that being the record from last year. If that was the record last year, they would have made the playoffs, though. Key additions. Jock Peterson, experienced guy, World Series winner, always seems to have power in his bat. Jake Berger, another guy, maybe doesn't have the playoff experience of Peterson, but another guy that has power in his bat, can hit home runs, drive in runs. Kyle Higashioka, fine defensive catchers, look for 10 to 15 home runs, kind of just that average catcher role. And then Jacob Webb and Chris Martin are great veterans to have in the bullpen that have good enough stuff to get guys out. Maybe aren't back-end guys. Jacob Webb isn't a back-end guy. Chris Martin's probably their closer this year, but Jacob Webb is he's just gonna come in that 6th, 7th inning, maybe even the 5th inning, pitch an inning, and find a way to get guys out. Key subtractions: Nathaniel Lowe. He was a key piece of that World Series team. No longer here. Jose Leclerc and Kirby Yates were your two, were kind of like your setup and your closer. Yates was the closer last year. Both of them were back end guys, so you have to replace both of them. And then Max Scherzer. Kind of uneven results with the Rangers and is out the door. Now they have a hole in their starting rotation. So they definitely have a lot of offensive pieces. How do they address the pitching this year? Most of this core from the 2023 World Series is still here. Simeon, great second baseman, can do a little bit of everything offensively. Great leadoff hitter for them. Corey Seager, great number 2 hitter. Seems like he gets hurt at least one time a year, but he's really good when he's healthy. Won multiple World Series by this point in his career. Wyatt Langford, one of the young guys starting out in left field. I expect to continue to see him to get better and better, and who even knows where his ceiling is. Can Adolis Garcia, is it 2023 or 2024 Adolis Garcia? 2024 Adolis Garcia is not bad, but 2023 Adolis Garcia is really good and could give you a lot of home runs. Jock Peterson, I think, will be DHing a lot. Is he 20-plus home run Jock Peterson? Is he even 30-plus home run Jock Peterson? Who knows? Josh Young, when healthy, really good third baseman, still a young player. I think he's getting better and better. Another dangerous offensive weapon potentially for the Rangers. Jake Berger has had good back-to-back years, 20-plus home runs, getting close to 30. He's going to drive some runs in, hit some balls to the gap, hit some balls out of there. Jonah Heim, kind of like Adolis Garcia. Is it World Series winning Jonah Heim, or is it last year Jonah Heim where he took a step back? Even if it's somewhere in between, that'll be good enough for the Rangers to have a good year. And then Leody Taveras is going to get to start in center field. He's going to, I think that's the weakest part in their lineup, and he's not bad. He's had some good years average-wise, and that's what he's going to need to do this year. Rotation, can Jacob deGrom stay healthy a whole year? If so, that'll go a long way. Obviously, he's an elite pitcher. Nathan Eovaldi, another good, arguably great pitcher, had a long career, been with the Rangers for a while. I expect Eovaldi to be normal Nathan Eovaldi in the 2 spot. Tyler Mahle, I don't really know. I could see it going either way this year for him. I'm very interested to see if he even holds on to that 3 spot as they get healthy. And then a pair of elite prospects that could be very, very good and for the Rangers this year, and Jack Leader and Kumar Rocker. If just one of them lives up to the hype they're supposed to have, this team is going to have a great rotation. If both of them do, they could have the best rotation in baseball, especially as they get healthy. Notable bullpen arms. Chris Martin, the new closer, how does he do? And then, some guys who have been in the bullpen for a while, Robert Garcia and Luke Jackson. I think the bullpen is the weakest part of this Rangers team. I think they have one of the best offenses in baseball. I think they'll have a good rotation. Can the bullpen get enough innings, save enough games to stay relevant? And then returning from injury, John Gray, starting pitcher, Cody Bradford, starting pitcher. See what happens with both of them. John Gray, obviously, is an experienced vet who has pitched well for the Rangers in the past. And then Josh Spores will be a massive help for the bullpen. Good reliever. He'll be back, and I think he'll make that bullpen stronger. I still think he's going to make it dominant, but he'll definitely make it better. The 4th place team, that even though they have a losing record, I think they still surprised surprised last year because they weren't as bad as expected. The Oakland Athletics, they saw some of their young guys take steps up, and they spent money in free agency, something that I think is commendable. Even if leaving Oakland is not, even if leaving Oakland for Sacramento is not commendable, I think at least trying to compete when you have your young guys getting better is. Who did they add? Luis Severino, trying to make that starting rotation better. He'll probably be the number 1 for him. Jeffrey Springs and Jose Leclerc will definitely move towards the back end of that bullpen, definitely make it better. And then Gio Urshela and Luis Urias, some infield utility guys that will probably won't play every day, will play certain matchups and definitely see playing time. Again, moving around the infield, giving guys days off. Key subtractions, not anything crazy. Reliever Scott Alexander and starting pitcher Ross Stripling. It sucks to lose those guys, but I think they replaced them with guys just as capable. Starting lineup, Lawrence Butler. Again, great speed guy. I think he's a young player that's only going to continue to get better. And I think this could be the breakout year for Lawrence Butler. Brent Rooker came out of nowhere, I feel like, a couple of years ago, and all he's done since, back-to-back 30 home run seasons. Brent Rooker, I think, is going to get better. Is going to keep getting better. Big power hitter in that 2nd spot. JJ Bleday showed some signs last year. I kind of like flipping Rooker and Bleday. I could see these guys going either way in the 2-3, but I think that's the 2-3 hole. Shea Langoliers, one of the best offensive catchers in the league and did not get talked about enough. Young Shea Langoliers, if he can improve on what he did last year, he might be the best offensive catcher in the league. hit for a decent average, can hit home runs, can drive in runs. Look out for Shea Langoliers this year. Miguel Andujar kind of has revived his career last year with the A's. Um, you know, former Yankees prospect with a lot of potential, never quite planned out. Ended up on the A's last year, had a good year. Max Muncy, no, not the one from the Dodgers. He's still there, a different one. I'm very intrigued to see what he does at second base this year and if he can be the everyday guy. Tyler Soderstrom, another guy. The theme of this A's team is young guys who have either just started putting it together or are close and showing signs, and Soderstrom is one of those guys. Gio Urshela and Jacob Wilson, maybe two guys. I don't know if I necessarily see them starting every day, playing every day, but can they give you enough offensively and keep the lineup turning over where you can score runs? And I think that is definitely they definitely have that potential. Rotation, I'm a little bit worried about. Luis Severino, proven commodity. You know what he's going to do. JP Sears was above average last year. Jeffrey Springs, despite I think they're making him a starter this year. What's he going to do for the Athletics? Estes and Beto, guys that I don't think I think have a little bit of potential but don't have a lot of innings. How do they adapt? Especially because when Beto has played, he has a super high ERA. This starting rotation is definitely the weekend of the A's, so they're going to have to score a lot of runs or hope somebody has a breakout season in the rotation. Notable bullpen arms: Mason Miller, super young, one of the best closers in the league, a flamethrower, maybe the fastest throwing guy in baseball. Jose Leclerc, another darn good reliever. He's been a closer multiple times in his career. He's going to be a great setup man and potentially good mentor to the young Mason Miller. And then Tyler Ferguson, another good back end option who's coming back from injury. Zach Geloff, another young player who will be almost assuredly go to the top, towards the top of that order like he was much of last year. And then Ken Waldichuk, all to come in for the A's, I think, and help shore up that starting rotation. Quickly moving on to the last team, the Angels, always trying to be competitive, never actually being competitive, always have holes in the roster, always either underperform or just can't get over the hump. And I think despite spending a lot of money, another one of those years is coming. Great additions in Kikuchi and Soler and Jansen, Darnaud, I can never say it, Darnaud. See, guys, I'm sorry, I've always struggled with Travis's last name there. Kyle Hendricks, and then I think Moncada will settle into utility role. A lot of great additions. I don't know if it gets him over the hump, especially with how competitive the wild cards should be for the American League this year. Key subtractions: they lost Patrick Sandoval. They kind of replaced him with a similar pitcher in Kikuchi, though. Griffin Canning hurts, and then Matt Tice off to the White Sox. Projected lineup: Taylor Ward and Nolan Shanuel, two young guys that you're hoping can continue to build on the last year of performances, especially Shanuel, who's came up very, very quickly. Mike Trout, everybody knows Mike Trout. He's synonymous with baseball, one of the best players. Can he stay healthy, and can the guys in front of him give him enough help? Maybe. It'll be interesting to see. Soler has had some pretty good seasons. He's capable of hitting 20, 30 home runs. Look out for Soler getting everyday playing time. Logan O'Hoppe is a decent catcher, decent offensively. He's good defensively. I expect him to continue to take steps forward. Yoan Moncada, is it early career Moncada when he was showing flashes of that elite prospect level play, or is it going to be the last couple of years where there's really not much there? That'll be telling of how the Angel season goes. Luis Rengifo, I will also be watching for the Angels. He's been there for a couple of years. Mixed results, I would say. Not bad, not great, just kind of in the middle. Joe Adell, a former top prospect who's shown flashes, but he's also shown flashes of just bad baseball and some big mistakes. Can Adell ever put it together? This might be the last chance he gets, at least with the Angels. And then Kevin Newman, just kind of that defensive guy, replacement guy. Wouldn't expect too much offensively. Maybe you get it, maybe you don't. The rotation is definitely interesting to me too. Yusei Kikuchi, known left-hander for the Blue Jays. Tyler Anderson, another left-hander. Kind of interesting starting, instead of mixing up your handedness, you're starting with two lefties. Soriano, Hendricks, a proven commodity. He's an older guy. He's been around. And then Jack Kochanowski. I think Soriano and Kochanowski are your two big question marks. What are they going to give you this year? If they give you enough, maybe your rotation is decent. There's too many question marks for me to completely trust this team offensively or defensively. Kenley Jansen is an elite closer, has been around for a long time, one of the all-time save leaders for a reason. You have Brock Burke, who I think will be that setup guy, maybe even get moved to the seventh inning role. For the next guy, Ben Joyce, another electric bullpen arm, another guy who's assuredly should join the Mason Miller list as one of as an elite young flamethrower at the back end of a bullpen. Maybe he's the future closer, and you're hoping Kenley Jansen can mentor him a little bit. And then to return from injury, another good back end bullpen piece, Robert Stevenson. And then Zach Neto, the young shortstop who has provided some good offense and good defense. And then Anthony Rendon, one of the worst contracts in MLB history. Will he ever play more than 50 games in a year? I don't know. Certainly not the same player they signed that won the World Series with the Nationals. I don't know what's wrong with Rendon. I don't think he can be fixed, though. Still should expect him to try and play this year. Moving on to where I see to the AL West standings predictions. Fangraphs has the division winner Astros at 83-79, taking a step back. They kind of took one back last year, and I think that maybe the time is over, or maybe they're kind of retooling and trying to rebuild the team around what's left of their core. But it definitely seems like they're potentially going to take a step back. The Mariners, Fangraphs has their rotation, it looks like, leading them to an 85-77 record. Rangers rebounding from the rough year last year to 84-78. Fangraphs yet again has an incredibly close race for first place. Athletics they have at 76-86, building on the success from last year, improving the record and looking like they could be in a great spot for 2026. And then the Angels, despite all their moves, they have at 76-86, which isn't awful, but it's not great. And I still feel like the Angels might be a little bit directionless as a franchise. Pacoda has the Astros doing a little bit better at 87-75. The Mariners and Rangers both doing better as well. Still having the same still having the teams separated by 2 games, 1 through 3. 88-7. Mariners winning it this time at 88-74, and the Rangers at 89-73. Well, the Rangers are winning it. The Mariners won Fangraphs. Pacoda has Rangers winning. Fangraphs has Mariners winning. Both of them have the Astros finishing third, 2 games back of first. Looks like there could be a pretty interesting division race between these 3 teams, according to these predictions. And then they have the Angels actually beating out the Athletics by 2 games, finishing at 74-88 over the Athletics 72-90. I don't know if I think that's going to happen. I don't think either makes the playoffs, but I think the Athletics have a little bit more going for them, and they have positive momentum in a lot of ways. And I don't think the Angels have positive momentum. I think that they're just kind of stuck where they always are. And if anything, that might hurt the team. Where do I have them finishing? Astros, again, I think they take a small step back. I don't think they're going to be completely irrelevant by any stretch. They still have some good pieces on that team. 85-77. Mariners, I think that starting rotation is really, really good. I think that they'll get enough offensively to get to the playoffs this year. I have them at 89-73. Rangers, I have winning the division, potentially being the best team in the American League at 91-71. Athletics, I think, are in the playoff picture until the All-Star break and then kind of fade out as the other teams start to do well. But 75-87 is not a bad year for them if that happens at all. And then I have the Angels continuing to kind of go down this directionless pit and missing the playoffs at 70-92, similar to where they were last year. Average them all together, the Rangers are winning the division at 88-74. Close behind are the Mariners at 87.33 and 74.67. And then Astros, again, not far behind at 85-77. And then the Angels and Athletics separated by 1 game. Athletics at 74.33 and 87.67. And the Angels at 73.33 and 88.67. So some quite close teams there in the American League West. Now, I won't make you flip back between all of the projections for the divisions. I am using the average number, not any of the other three. Once you average them all together, right? And if you were to look at the playoff bracket at that point, this is what it would look like. And I went ahead and predicted it. Again, I'm not going to spend too much time on this because there's 162 games still to play for 28 of the teams. But hypothetically speaking, I think if this is the playoff bracket that I got by evening out the records, this is how I could see it going. But again, these teams are going to look different between injuries and the trade deadline and everything else that happens in a baseball season. So I'm not going to take too much stock in it. But hypothetically, this is what I would choose. Thank you guys so much for listening in. This has been the AL predictions. Sorry these predictions are so long and the longest videos on the channel, but I really wanted to get in depth. Let me know if you like getting more in depth and having these deeper looks. In the past, the season previews haven't been this long, haven't been as in depth. It's been much more surface level. So let me know if you like this better than the other ones, or if you want me to say, hey, stop your rambling, make the episode shorter. I can do that as well. I need to hear feedback from you. I have a National League one coming out not too long after this one that's literally going to be the same thing just for the National League teams. So hopefully you guys listen in. Thank you for taking time out of your days, your weeks, and your lives for listening to this episode. I hope you listen to the National one. Please like, comment, and subscribe. The things you can do to help me the most. Let me know your predictions in the comments. Come back for that National League podcast. Peace out.